Welcome to the Senior to Seniors podcast, where I dive into stories of seniors, explore their unique experiences, discuss the real issues facing seniors today, and introduce you to those assisting seniors in their senior journey. I have the privilege to talk to some of the most interesting people in the world that are impacting the senior community. My name is Jim Mazziotti, and I've been a realtor for 33 years and am a national speaker, real estate coach, and author. And my goal today is to bring a guest to you that will help enrich your life. And today I have with me Karry Ballinger. Welcome, Karry. I'm so glad
Thank
you're here.
you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
So let me just do a proper introduction to the audience so they know who you are and what you do. So Karry is a CLTC. She's a seasoned long-term care specialist with over 25 years of experience. She partners with financial advisors to educate them on the importance of long-term planning. Karry emphasizes the emotional, physical, and financial aspects of long-term care needs and advocates for working with specialists in this field for multi-generational planning. As an independent specialist, she assists advisors and their clients in preparing for healthcare in retirement, offering personalized guidance and expertise. Karry's dedication to empowering individuals and families through proactive long-term planning makes her a valuable resource in the industry. And Karry, I have so much to learn, as I'm guessing my audience does. So tell me a little bit about you and your family, first of all, so we can get to know you just a little bit.
Absolutely. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. My husband, Kip, we have one son that's at A&M, and he's a sophomore studying business.
Great. So you're just down the road from me in
Yeah.
Fort Worth, Texas. But tell me, does your work take you outside of Texas? Do you work with people outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Absolutely, Jim. So I work with advisors all over, but mainly in Dallas, Fort Worth. And just imagine those advisors have clients that live in different states or have moved to different states. So oftentimes, I have several licenses in different states because in order to
Okay,
be insurance licensed, to help somebody in the state of Oklahoma, you have to be licensed in that state. So I do have various license in different states to make sure that I can help those clients of those advisors no matter where they are.
great. And I understand that your work as a speaker are taking you outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the next week or so, where you're going to Philadelphia to speak. Can you talk to
Yeah,
me a little bit about that? I speak a
yeah.
little bit too. I'd love to hear about
We
it.
have, yeah, in our industry, we have our largest long-term care conference coming up called the ILTCI conference. It's in Philadelphia this year. And I'm excited to be on a panel talking about why networking with professionals is important in my industry because it's a very specialized area. So
Yes,
I do a lot of networking and educational events with advisors and a lot of different specialists like you, seniors to seniors, to make sure that long-term care, it's a piece that needs a lot of education. So I'm excited to go to Philly in a week or so and be on a panel with some amazing panelists and just network with people in my industry to further long-term care and make sure that we're getting the word out.
well, I hope you have a fantastic time, and I'm sure
Thank you.
you're going to touch a lot of lives when you're there. So tell me, what inspired you to specialize in long-term care? 25 years ago. What was the inspiration that moved you towards where you're at today?
Sure. And it's actually a little over 25 years ago, but that's a great mark. Um, Very interesting. Right out of college, I was studying to hopefully go into being a nursing home administrator, Jim. And I did some internships in college in nursing homes because my minor was actually in gerontology. Um, And I found out that I realized that working in the nursing home was not my fit. And I got introduced actually by my aunt to a long-term care financial planning firm, which was American Express at the time
Okay.
in the Dallas-Fort Worth area
Hmm.
that specialized in long-term care, just that portion of their branch. It was a career long-term care planning firm with inside of American Express Financial Advisors,
Yeah.
and got to work under and be mentored by some of the most amazing people in this industry. And that's kind of where it got started. And then from there, I worked in a lot of different areas from being a wholesaler with an insurance company. But my favorite thing along the way has always been working alongside an advisor to bring the best long-term care planning ideas, products, funding strategies, etc., to their clients because they don't have the time to focus on long-term care. And as a fiduciary, it's something they need to be talking about because it's one of the biggest threats to our financial nest egg. So
Sure.
along the way, working in different areas, but that's kind of how I got into it. And have worked in so many different areas, but my favorite area, and that's the area that I still specialize today, is working alongside a financial planner or an insurance specialist that doesn't do long-term care to make sure their clients are up to date on all the products out there, state initiatives, just long-term care education to make sure their clients are up to date and the advisors up to date.
Interesting. Well, I know for me, I will have, financial advisors that will reach out to me because they can't know everything about everything.
Right,
A financial advisor will know it's important for people to plan financially for their future, for,
right.
current and future, but they don't have the knowledge for everything, right? And so I think the best financial advisor, for example, will be one that will reach out to you, rather than trying to do it all themselves, to
Well,
reach out to,
sometimes they're so busy
right?
that it's important for those of us in my industry to offer educational events and things like you're doing right now to kind of get the word out. I also have a 1 hour CE class that I
Okay.
do for advisors that's approved in Texas. So I offer lunch and learns to advisor groups that want more education or want to educate their staff. So that's another great thing to get out there and educate financial planning firms on their long-term care options.
Yeah. Well, one of my goals as a realtor is it's kind of going outside the normal traditional real estate route. I've chosen at my age and at this time to focus primarily on seniors. And
Right,
with that comes issues with seniors.
right.
And what I'm trying to do is to, give them the best advice for things that I really didn't care about in the past, right? My
Right.
job was to find a home for someone or to sell a home, but it wasn't about, how do you deal with actual moving when you're a senior? And what if one of you have to go to a senior center or you need long-term care of some kind? And so
I'm so
what I'm
glad
trying to,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm glad that you're talking about that because I've met people along the way this last week that there's so many, specialists, professionals in our area. Like I met a lady last week who's a certified aging in place
yeah,
specialist. She's a realtor and she has a certification to help the senior do modifications to their home out of an ER visit, a hospital stay, so they can age in place and then possibly open up long-term care insurance and start the claim and receive benefits from a home health care agency, widening doors, all of those things. So it was really neat to meet her. You should meet her as well.
yeah. And I can tell you, in all the real estate classes I've ever taken, being in this business 33 years, never has anyone brought up those kind of issues that, and what are there? There's 60 million people in the US right now that are 65 age and older, and it's climbing. So, well, tell me, what's the best age to purchase long-term care?
I get that question a lot, Jim, and I always tell people that ages 50 to 65 are your prime ages to buy long-term care because that's when we are healthy. We're
Mhm.
looking to retirement. Um, a lot of that age group also has children in college, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't start getting educated. It doesn't mean they have to purchase right then and there, but the advisors that I work with, they can even start earlier, 45. However, I
Mhm.
always say start at age 50 and don't wait till 65 to purchase. Because the thing about long-term care planning and all the products we work with, they are health, they are bought with your health. So health underwriting is important. I have to navigate a lot of clients out of surgeries, waiting times. If we apply for an application and you've just had a surgery, there's a waiting period for that. And my goal is to make sure I don't get you declined because that goes on your MIB inquiry, which is a medical information bureau. So
Yes.
I'm very thorough when I do an underwriting review with a client to make sure it's time and it's a great time for you to apply because I could actually get you declined if I'm not thorough in my underwriting review.
So the kind of things that can push people out of being able to get long-term care, what are those kind of things that are they the
Um,
normal things with
well,
cancer, with
there's
type?
there's a lot of different lists and medications can be uninsurable at the time, but
Okay.
a client that always comes to mind to me that I always share to make sure I'm gathering everything. I had a 50-year-old client, tennis player out of Midland, Texas, picture of health. She got declined. Why?
Mm.
Because
Hmm.
she did not tell me she was getting pain injections in her backs of her knees and her elbows so she could keep on playing tennis.
Oh my gosh.
So I hated to have to tell her, but what we did from there, we learned from that and we did a waiting period and she was off of those injections and then we reapplied 6 months later and got her approved for a policy. So I'm big about, hey, I know you told me your health is great, you're not on this medication, that medication, you don't have any pending surgeries or treatment, but that was considered treatment. And I always use her as an example when I'm working with a
Wow.
new client to make sure I'm hearing everything they have going on to prevent a decline.
Yeah. And for some, that might be something they wouldn't even think about mentioning, right?
Right.
Although I would guess hers were probably pretty severe. You know, she was
I
playing
had a
tennis.
doctor, I had a doctor one time apply and he had a day surgery on his back was orthoscopic,
Yeah.
didn't share it with me. And he's like, it was just day surgery, in and out. I said, as long as you're under the treatment of a doctor and you haven't been released from care, then the insurance company, most of the ones we'll work with would probably put either like a hold on that, a postpone, or they could decline it until the treatment is finished.
Yeah. You know, when we talked about the ages, most generally 50 to 65 that you mentioned, this morning, for example, before our conversation here, I was with my chiropractor.
Oh,
And so as I'm laying on the table, he said, "So what's your day look like?" And I go, "Well, I need to get a move on because I'm going to be talking to some people today for my podcast." He said, "Well, who's your guest today?" And I said, "Well, it's Karry Ballinger, and she's a long-term care specialist." And I said, "Tell me," and he's probably 38, a young guy.
yeah.
And I said, have you ever thought about long-term care? Just in, and he said, "No, I haven't even thought about it." And I said, "Well, the problem is, neither had I. And I don't think it's not top of mind. You know, when you're young, when, that 50 age, and you don't think that you're ever going to get old, you're never going to need long-term care. And, so opening people's eyes, even though he's just
Right.
38, I think is a smart thing to do. So um, now I know there are more ways. I think you tell me this. I know for some people, paying for long-term care insurance is a challenge. So are there more ways than just um, using your social security check or using just your savings account in the bank? Are there more ways to fund premiums for long-term care insurance?
I'm so glad you asked that, Jim. There are so many different products we have, and there's so many different ways to fund it. I think the most important thing to know, what's very important when you say funding with your Social Security, we first have to make sure that the client is a great candidate for long-term care planning. And those that are a great candidate have assets to protect outside of their home. If I'm just receiving a Social Security check and I don't have savings to protect, I'm very careful on who I plan for, because why do we buy long-term care insurance? To protect our assets
Yes.
in the event that we need home health care, nursing home, assisted living. The cost of care in Dallas-Fort Worth right now is anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000 a month, and
Yeah.
it's just going to climb from there. So it's real important that that person that we're planning for, we're doing the right thing.
And I'm guessing the 6 to 8. Sorry to interrupt you, Karry, but I'm
No, that's
guessing that
okay.
the 6 to 8 is probably for just general long-term care. Doesn't include maybe memory care and other kind of help that is needed for a senior. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's a big misconception. So I'll just say on average, Dallas-Fort Worth, let's just say 6,000 to 8,000. And those assisted living facilities could even start out lower at the 4,000 rate. But what people don't realize is that's, say, the low tier. And when I'm in that assisted living facility at level 4 and I need all of the help, managing medications, et cetera, that 4,000 can turn to 8,000 real quick.
Wow.
Memory
Wow.
care, Jim, can top out 8, 10, 12,000. And then another
Hmm.
thing people don't realize is they think that home health care is less expensive than receiving assisted living or nursing home because they're residing in their home. But what they don't realize, or their families don't realize, is mom needs 24 hours of care. Okay. And
Yeah.
that's going to be the most expensive type of long-term care that that family could receive. In fact, I have a client right now that I'm working with their family on some generational planning. And I reviewed a policy for them years ago, and I think she let it go. She is now in the middle of caring for her parents at over $20,000 a month,
Oh my.
is what they are getting billed for their care, whether it's in home. I'm trying to remember where she's going back and forth. So I've reconnected with that client because she, I hate to see that people have to get into the trenches to realize how expensive this is. I'm
Yeah.
right there with my parents. They own a policy that has over $8,000 a month. They bought 20 years ago. My mom has fallen 12 times. She's been in and out of a wheelchair. My dad has her on a walker. He's her full-time caregiver. They're right here in Fort Worth around the corner. I keep telling my dad, mom is eligible to open up a claim on her policy. Can we get some help for you? He said, we're fine right now, Karry. So my dad doesn't want anybody in his home.
Yeah.
And I try to tell him all the time, I'm like, Dad, the minute you fall or you're helping mom and you both fall, I'm the youngest of 3 daughters. I live here in Fort Worth, have a sister in Oklahoma, one in Plano,
Hmm.
and it's going to fall to me. So, but you have to kind of step back, Jim. And the one thing I said to my dad is just promise me that when you can't take it anymore, you'll let me know. And he kind of teared up and
Yeah.
he said, I promise. Because he
Yeah.
knows that I'm the one that burden's going to fall to. And I'm so glad I have that policy that has $8,000 a month. And I'm so glad I have a home health care network here in Dallas Fort Worth ready to take care of my parents when that time comes.
But most people don't, Karry, as you
Right.
know, they're just one fall away from catastrophe and a complete change of their life that no one could ever plan for. Our family, all my family lives right here in the Dallas area. I'm fortunate for that. But, when we gather on Sundays to have, pasta together, which is kind of a tradition of
Awesome.
our family,
Yeah.
um, the conversation just doesn't go to, hey, have any of you thought about long-term care? Or, have any of you thought about how you're going to take care of me? when I fall because it's inevitable. It's just part of the whole deal. As a matter of fact, I'm just looking at this. When I was in the hospital the last time for surgery, they gave me this,
Yeah, I've seen
right?
that. Yeah, fall
And, and
risk.
and so recently I brought it up to my brother. He was visiting, and I said, and he's 79. I said, how are you going to deal with this? And while he was here, he actually fell down. So it's usually something we don't even think about until there's that moment where we have to think about it. So tell me, in comparing long-term care plans, it can be time consuming. There's no doubt about it. What can people do to start planning now for it? Who should they contact? What should they be thinking about?
I think that working with a long-term care specialist, Jim, is very important. Not that the client's financial advisor can't help them, but that's really who I work with and have for the last 25 years. I partner with advisors to be their long-term care insurance specialist to make sure that we're bringing up-to-date strategies, up-to-date funding solutions, all the top products. These products change, Jim, every 2 years. And it's
Yeah,
hard for a financial planner to keep up with the benefits, the taxation, the premium, how it can be funded. We didn't touch on that a lot. Real quick, I want to make sure that people know that you can fund long-term care insurance premiums with HSA dollars. You can fund long-term care insurance premiums with IRAs, 401ks. Also, probably the thing that people don't realize is there's so many millions of dollars sitting in non-qualified annuities. And guess what happens? That annuity has gain in it because it's been growing. So that's one of the things that people use for long-term care, and they end up having to pay the tax on the gain. Do you know
mm,
that there are long-term care annuities out there approved by the Pension Protection Act that allows you to move a non-qualified annuity into a long-term care Pension Protection Act product that allows all the benefits to come out tax and gain free? So if
wow.
they just leave their annuity sitting there and they're like, I'm just going to use this for long-term care, and their children have to cash it out to pay for nursing home, assisted living, home health care, they're going to pay tax on the gain when they could have
Mhm.
rolled it over into a long-term care annuity designed to pay tax-free long-term care benefits for home care, nursing home, and assisted living.
Okay, I did not know that. And I don't think most people, I'm certainly not an expert in this field, but I don't think most people understand that. Does that include uh, money from 401ks?
Yes, and
And
IRA funding. I'm working with a family right now um, who is using IRA funding to fund a joint plan for her and her husband. So you want to be 59 and a half and older, of course, but
okay,
we have joint products that you can fund with IRA dollars. So there's a lot of different strategies. Another thing to think about is as we get older and we look to retire, life insurance becomes less important and long-term care becomes more important. Why? Death
okay,
benefits pay out what when we die? Long-term care benefits are paying out while we're living. So did
yeah.
you know that you can 1035 exchange cash value out of an old life policy and turn it into tax-free long-term care benefits? And if you don't use the benefits for long-term care, Jim, the death benefit passes to your children tax-free because it's got a life component and a long-term care component. So why leave that money sitting there if you've got a lot of life insurance and your kids are grown? Because the number one thing that's going to really deplete your assets is what? A long-term care event, right?
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
So a lot of
So
people have tons of life insurance and will peel off just a portion and move that life insurance cash value, 1035 it over, and create really nice benefits for long-term care for that client.
hmm. So if somebody would draw from their 401k, are they penalized when they do that from the 401k?
I'd have to show you how this product works. It rolls over tax-free.
Okay.
The insurance carrier gives it an income bonus to fund a 10-pay long-term care product. And it can also count for RMDs for that client. I think the RMD is 72 and a half.
Okay.
So it's a really neat structure. And that person who owns the IRA or the qualified money, it rolls over and they can add a joint insured to cover their spouse, which is really nice. You can
Hmm.
also do that with inherited IRAs.
Interesting. Man, I'm learning a lot here, and I'm hoping the listeners are learning a lot as well. Um, a question that I wasn't planning to ask, but that's on my mind is if you haven't started this process of planning for long-term care, what's the first step that you would recommend?
Very easy step. I have a very simple health questionnaire that I send out to the client that basically just asks for your height, your weight, your medications. Do you have any pending surgeries, pending treatment? And I run that through over 15 long-term care carriers that I work with. And then once I see which products we can look at, that kind of narrows it down. And then I talk to you about finances and retirement and asset protection. And where is the best place, Jim, to pay for that long-term care premium? If you're in your 50s and you're still working and you've got kids in college, we might look to pay that plan off in 10 years, which is very popular. It's called a 10 pay. We can also pay it off in 5 years, 20 years. And so as that couple is working, they're sending premiums in, which are guaranteed premiums. They can pay it off in 10 years and have an end in sight versus paying into an annual premium that they never get rid of. But it all depends on budget and which product is right for each individual or family. There's going to be times that I recommend just an annual pay, or maybe they have high monthly income, and I
Mhm.
structure it to where they can just do a monthly bank draft and they feel real comfortable with that. It really all depends on what funding they have available, what makes the most sense. And that's why I work alongside a financial planner to get that financial planner's input as well, to where we're all on the same page and it's in the best interest of the client.
Great. So I'm not sure even what to ask next, but what's the biggest mistake people make? You've told us, how they can, when they should start, how they can start. What kind of mistakes have you seen that people have made?
I was just talking to a colleague this morning about that actually on LinkedIn. The education in our industry is huge. People move too fast. They don't take the time to understand how long-term care insurance works, pays out, the underwriting when you file a claim. They do. This is the number one misconception, is they have in the back of their mind that Medicare will pay for their long-term care.
Well, that's something I wanted to touch on. So talk about that just a little bit about Medicare, what they do, what they don't cover, and Medicaid, Medicare. Tell me.
But real quick, Medicare only pays for the first 20 days out of a 3-day hospital stay. So I'm always telling my clients, if you're, that have long-term care insurance, if your loved one gets admitted into the ER, do your best to try to get them admitted for to see what's actually going on versus getting discharged quickly, because we call it 3 midnight stays. So once we're in care for 3 midnight stays and we get transferred to a skilled nursing home, Medicare will pay the first 20 days at 100%. Those 20 days, Jim, will also count towards satisfying the deductible on our long-term care insurance policy when we open up a claim. Days 21 through 100, Medicare will pay a portion towards that elimination period as well that can count. I learned a lot when my mother-in-law went into the ER. They tried to discharge her very quickly. She was basically in a coma. She had fallen. and they tried to discharge her on a Saturday morning to my husband. And I looked at my husband and I said, she's not awake. We're going to stay right here. Her doctor was on call. I requested to talk to the nurse and I said, I want her admitted. We admitted her, Jim. She did not wake up for 5 days.
My God. Well,
And if we would have sent her home, we would have lost her. And I transitioned her to a nursing home. She had a policy with a great carrier, and it took care of her for 3 years here in a nursing home in Fort Worth. But if I was not there, I think we would have lost her that day.
well, that's a story that, it probably happens more than we would like to know, right?
Right.
But so what question, what area haven't I covered, Karry, in trying to provide information to my audience? What's one or two questions that I should have asked you, but I just didn't? What would you?
I think the thing that I would like to end with is that I really want people to realize that long-term care is not a place. Okay, it's an event that happens, Jim, and you and I are not in control of when, where it's going to happen. And the reason why long-term care insurance is so important, it's going to follow you wherever you need care. It typically will start with a trip to the ER, and then you either get discharged home, end up going into assisted living, nursing home. Long-term care insurance pays for all of those things privately. Like I said, misconception. People think Medicare is going to follow them home and pay for home health care for as long as they need it. They think Medicare is going to pay in assisted living. Assisted living, Jim, is fully private pay, only by your own funds or by long-term care insurance. So I think the number one thing I would like for people to know is understand that Medicare does not pay for a long-term care stay. It's short-term stay only. In fact, anything that's expected to last over 90 days, Medicare will not cover.
Hmm.
But when I say that long-term care is a place, a home health care team that I work with will meet my clients where they are, which is fantastic. They'll show up at the rehab facility, the hospital, and the client's home. They'll help my clients open up the claim on the long-term care insurance they have and get long-term care services in the home started right away to follow their journey, which is so needed in our industry. There's a disconnect there because I'm working with a son right now in Plano. Mom's in assisted living facility, and he's texting me on the weekends. He doesn't have anybody to turn to but me.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a policy with me, and I'm telling him what he needs to do to navigate. And I've opened up a claim over the weekend, and it's tough. When it happens to you or it happens to the children, they are faced with something that they've never done before, and the navigation is hard if they don't have somebody to guide them.
Yeah, exactly. And don't know where to turn to.
Right.
So you're one of those people that people can turn to. If people choose to turn to you, Karry, how are they best? What's the best method to get a hold of you, to contact you?
You are welcome to connect me by email or pass my number. One thing I do want you to understand and the listeners to understand is I'm a long-term care insurance planning specialist. However, I have a huge network. If people are looking for, like I work with a whole group in Dallas-Fort Worth that does nothing. I think I've told you, you've probably met, they do planning for facilities. It's kind of like a realtor for long-term care. They help my families find assisted living, nursing home care. Then I work with a whole nother group for home health care. But I'm connected to so many different people, from estate planning attorneys. So I can be kind of a guide, but I'm a long-term care insurance specialist. So if you're looking to plan for long-term care insurance and want to look at insurance products, quotes, things like that, I'm that person that's going to be doing that work. But I'm happy to connect others that might need another professional kind of in our industry, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Well, I will do just that. And Karry, I'm so happy that you joined me today, and so glad that we've met. We'll have to meet and sit down for a cup of coffee or
Yes.
whatever your favorite beverage might be at some point. So listen, you have a great trip to Philadelphia and learn a lot, bring it back. And I hope we can talk again very soon.
Yeah, Jim, thank you so much for having me. You have a great weekend, okay?
You too. Thanks for being
Okay.
with me.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.